So for those of you that have been following along with the podcast, you're going to know that this is episode number 6, I believe. And I'm sure you can see when you look around on the screen that we're going to do things a little bit different. We're going to switch it up today, mainly because I'm hosting, which is something a little bit different than what we were doing before. I'm not only joined by my usual cohort, Aaron, but I'm also got some other people here that are here for a very specific reason. So basically, so far, Erin and I have gone over the different skills of dialectical behavior therapy and how we integrate them with schema therapy, trying to be the best person that we can be in the areas of life that are important to us, and striving to be that every single day in the programs that we've got at the Liberation Place, in the meetings that we do, with the understanding that we are going to fail when we're trying to do those things, but ultimately it's the striving that creates the growth. One of the messages that we're trying to get out there just through the podcasts and the meetings and the social media stuff that we do, everything that we're trying to put out there is that there are a lot of different ways that you can practice recovery. So while we do talk about things from a DBT and a schema therapy perspective at the Liberation Place, there's a lot of other ways that you can practice recovery, because I know when I first sobered up myself, I was pushed towards something that, to be perfectly honest with you, really just didn't work for me. It's probably the reasons why I spent first 10 years of trying to get sober, bouncing in and out of programs and things like that. And, I know that there are programs that do work for some people, so we're not trying to knock any kind of programming in any way, but I wasn't told about any alternatives when I first started to look at recovery, because I think mainly because people didn't know that there were alternative programs out there. So like I said, one of the things that we're trying to do is get the word out there about all the different types of recovery programs, behavior change programs that are available. So in this conversation today, probably going to be a few other conversations as well, because I don't think we're going to get through everything today. We're going to open up the conversation about something that's called smart recovery. So before we get into it, I need to be really clear from a legal standpoint that this is in no way an official smart recovery presentation. The Liberation Place is not affiliated with smart recovery in any way. And in this conversation, we aren't speaking for smart recovery. We're not speaking on behalf of smart recovery in any way at all. So this is a completely independent conversation where each of us has got our own experiences with smart recovery. And that's basically what we're going to talk about. Before we go around and start to introduce each other, we'll go around and just kind of get to know why you're here and what it is that we're going to talk about. I do think it's important that we probably put out there what smart recovery is, because, there may be people that are watching this or tuning into this, listening to it, however you're receiving it, that haven't got a clue what smart recovery is. So SMART itself stands for, just going to give a brief outline of it. SMART itself stands for self-management and recovery training. You can take a look at the official Smart Recovery website if you want. If you look at the front page, the quick definition says that it is the leading evidence-informed approach to overcoming addictive behaviors and living a balanced lifestyle, which lines up really nice with what we talk about in dialectical behavior therapy. It also states that it provides a space that is stigma-free and has an emphasis on what it calls self-empowerment, which is a little bit different. All kind of fancy terms, but basically SMART uses evidence-based tools that create a model of recovery for people who are looking to empower themselves and the choices that they make. So it does this through what it calls its 4-point program, which revolves around building and maintaining motivation, coping with urges, managing thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, and then ultimately living that balanced lifestyle. So to do this, it tends to use a couple of different therapy models that are evidence-based, primarily revolves around what's called motivational interviewing. I'm fortunate enough to have met one of the creators of motivational interviewing, Bill Miller, when I was participating in a particular program that he was doing where he was teaching about motivational interviewing. So, I've got a lot of experience with motivational interviewing, and it also uses something that's called rational emotive behavior therapy. So if you're not aware of what REBT is, this has been around for a really long time. It's the forerunner to things like cognitive therapy. A lot of the skills in REBT are involved in schema therapy and in dialectical behavior therapy too. So, one of the reasons that I gravitated towards smart recovery was because of this, having training in DBT. The way that I got introduced to smart recovery was when I was working at the Canadian Mental Health Association. I was asked by one of the directors there to find a group program that we could get behind, that we could use at the agency to help people that were dealing with addictive obsessive and compulsive coping mechanisms. We could train people up in it. So I did my research, checked around online and found Smart Recovery, went through the training program myself, ended up starting a program at CMHA in Brampton. We started on in-person meetings first and then went to online meetings and ended up branching out and doing a meeting on a Sunday that was outside of the workspace with CMHA, and got quite involved in Smart Recovery behind the scenes as well when there was a whole push around starting Smart Recovery Canada. But basically, Smart offers either in-person or online meetings to people that are looking to try to build or learn about the skills that are offered in their handbook, which you can get either online, and the skills are also available in PDF forms online. So basically, Smart Recovery it's an alternative. I tend to look at it as not necessarily an either or, more of an and. You know, you can use it in conjunction with other programs, or you can use it as a standalone program. So let's spend a little bit of time going around. We've kind of introduced what Smart Recovery is. I've talked a little bit about what my experience of it was and how I got connected with it. But obviously, what we're going to do in this conversation is we're going to introduce the people that are involved in this roundtable. We're going to talk a little bit about their experience of what Smart Recovery is, how they got connected to it, what it was like when they first got connected to the program. Because for me, I think one of the, in the meetings that I do, I talk extensively about building a foundation for a recovery model. That foundation revolves around mindfulness. It revolves around understanding the skills of distress tolerance in dialectical behavior therapy, taking care of yourself physically. But one of the first things that I usually talk about is building a community of people, a support network that's around you. And I think that, if anything, Smart Recovery, because of its extensive network online and in-person meetings right across North America and Europe, it's a fantastic way to start to build a recovery community, and then obviously get the skills as you go through it. So let's start off. Erin, going to start with you, being as you're my usual regular cohort. Start with you, just to talk a little bit, if you can just introduce how you got connected with Smart Recovery, what it was like when you first started coming to the meetings, and how you decided to become a facilitator, what that was like. Just talk us through, man. What was it like when you first, how did you find out about Smart, and what it was like when you first kind of stepped into the community?
It's an interesting question, Stephen. I've been thinking about it while you were talking. My answer is, so I found out about Smart because a program I was a part of got consolidated. There was a consolidation between three hospitals at the time. It was St. Joseph, St. Mike's, and Providence. And the program I was a part of got canceled as a result of that consolidation. And a few of the members of that group said to me, you should come check out Smart. And one of them specifically said, you should come check out Stephen Morris. So my first meeting with Smart Recovery was actually your meeting. And it set the bar to a level. I don't mean to discourage, or put down other smart facilitators, but you came from a realm of understanding these tools that many of the other facilitators aren't necessarily equipped with. And what it did differently, I'd say, than anything I had ever met or found in life was REBT, specifically having learned that it's based around unconditional self-acceptance. You presented a way of talking to me that was validating of my thoughts and feelings and non-judgmental. It wasn't about whether I was right, wrong, good, bad, any of that. It was just, no, this is what you think. This is how you feel. That's totally okay. And that approach for the first time was very, I guess, welcoming. And it was like, and then that next step for me was that self-analysis tool of accountability of, okay, so you're validating me, so then I'm right? Well, no, hold on. I'm not saying that, but these tools give us that ability to accept ourselves, that there's definitely, and the language I love, a part of me that is thinking this way. There's definitely a part of me that's feeling this thing right now. And having that, I guess, way of looking at things, that almost philosophical twist in how I'm being presented the information I'm dealing with in my head, was given to me in a way for the first time with Smart Recovery. And then trying to understand what Smart Recovery was, like you brought up REBT being one of the main foundations that it's rooted around. I started to explore the other aspects of it, because to me, unconditional self-acceptance is unconditional, fully accepting myself. And some of the language that was being taught in Smart, to me, or parts of me, were like, well, this isn't very accepting. And it's like, well, not every tool within Smart is necessarily specifically REBT oriented,
Right.
and can be used in many ways, right? So that exploration of all these different modalities of CBT that are being, like you bring up DBT and schema that are from the liberation place, REBT being one of the main ones in SMART, and being able to combine them. First of all, understand what they are and what differences they bring, but understanding myself and how they are useful for my own exploration.
Yeah.
The biggest one, Stephen, has been that self-analysis, um, because I find that everything else kind of is less effective if I am not willing to take my role or my accountability in the situation that's occurring. If everything I'm trying to do is, well, this person should have been doing this way, or this person could have been acting better towards me, it's like, yes, and I could do this and I could do that. And the way that I'm feeling isn't wrong. It's just, it's valid and not effective for the behavioral response that was occurring at the time,
Yeah.
which was very um, hyperbolic, animated, over the top, exaggerated. It's not that I didn't have the right to express how I was feeling or what I was thinking. It was how I was going about it.
Yeah.
And that was what was pushing people away more. So having someone like yourself, Stephen, who was really like for the first time to say, no, but you're, how you feel is totally okay. You know, is it effective, the response you're getting for the, like, you know, the person that you want to be? One good example that you shared with me, Stephen, was the apology thing, which happened recently, where I thought I hadn't done anything wrong and this person's upset with me. And there's a part of me that's like, I shouldn't have to apologize. You know, I've done nothing wrong. Why should I apologize to you? But it's like, who do I want to be though? And do I value empathy? Do I value kindness and all these things that I know will be felt at the moment of just saying, you know what, I'm sorry. You know, even though there's a part of me that's going, you shouldn't be apologizing right now. You did nothing wrong. And it's like,
Exactly.
right.
So
But what's
So
that? Sorry.
you came into the smart recovery community. You obviously started coming to my meetings. At what point did you decide then that you wanted to step into doing facilitation? You wanted to actually start to host your own meeting and try to bring this into other people's lives from your perspective? Because I tend to find, I think the beautiful thing about smart recovery is that when you've been in the program for a while, you can then take the training and you can become a facilitator, facilitating your own meetings. And I think the great thing about that is that each facilitator brings their own perspective around the skills and the tools and the way that they can be used. Obviously, I've got mine and the way that I look at them, and you've got yours, and everybody here has their own individual, unique ways of looking at the skills and the way that they've been effective for them. So, what was it that at what point did you decide that you wanted to come into to being a facilitator and take the training?
That was actually Cynthia Moore had reached out to me and asked if I would be willing to. And I had honestly thought about it in the past, but hadn't done it until she stepped up and was like, hey, I've had a couple people approach me saying that they think that you would be good at this. Would you be willing to take the training and start a meeting? And I'm happy I did. I'm grateful she approached me. I'm humbled that they would think of me. And um, yeah, it's been one of the greatest decisions I've made, I think, in my life, because it's really been rewarding. People say how much they look forward to my group. I think I look forward to it that much more, because
Yeah,
it really is something that I'm like, I do. I don't know if you feel the same way about the groups we come to with you,
yeah,
Stephen,
yeah,
but
yeah.
you know, I look forward to them.
I always
So
find it when people talk about how much they get out of the groups that I facilitate. It's quite an emotional experience for me. Because sometimes I just think of the groups that I facilitate as just being, yeah, it's just a meeting. People show up and they listen, and then we come out the other side, and that's that. But we forget, I think, sometimes as facilitators, how much people like need the meetings, how much they want the meetings, how much they look forward to the meetings. And it's a really, I think you use the word humbling. I couldn't agree with you more. It's a really humbling experience for me when people say that, and I actually get quite emotional about it. So yeah, I know exactly where you're coming from with that. So then you took the training. Cynthia approached you. You decided that you were going to take the training. What was that like? What was that like for you to go through?
it was interesting. It was informative. It allowed me to look at the tools in a way that I hadn't yet, because I'd only used them, not learned how they're taught in a sense. So
Yeah,
you know, it gave me a more profound understanding, I guess, of how not just to teach the tools, but to use them with myself.
amazing.
Um, and yeah, it was, I also like the pace of it, because it wasn't like you must complete this in one
Yeah,
week, or you got to get this all right on your first try, or you're going to start from the beginning. Um, And I also like the fact that once I completed it, I knew that other facilitators had gone through this, which gave me a bit of comfort knowing that, these people are being trained with the same stuff I was just trained, which I do feel like I am better off knowing,
Yeah,
better prepared. And since then, I've even taken additional trade. Like you brought up Dr. Bill Miller, I took an online course of his,
amazing.
and I took another motivational interviewing course, which I apply in meetings and I apply in my own social life as well, because I find it to be very effective when just showing empathy with people and letting
Yeah,
them know that I understand or I'm trying to listen to them actively.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I find that it opened up a Pandora's box of Aaron wants to learn more.
Yeah, amazing. That's brilliant. Well, we're going to get into your personal experiences with the tools and which tools you find most useful, most effective, depending on what you're trying to do with clients in your own individual or sorry, participants in your own individual meetings. But I want to turn my attention to Jody. Jody, let's talk a little bit about your experience. Obviously, you're a smart recovery facilitator in the US. Let's talk a little bit about how you came across smart recovery, what led you into the rooms, in person or online, and what your experience was like when you first joined in on the community. Tell me a little bit about
Well, I actually started drinking and smoking cigarettes when I was 25 after having gastric bypass surgery, and I kind of just did that for years and years.
that.
So in 2018, I tried 12 step and I was sober for about 8 months doing 12 step. And some things happened, and I kind of got shunned from the community. And so I went back out and I started drinking again. And then I got to a point in March of 2023 that I was in debt. I was drunk or high or whatever all the time. And I didn't really take care of myself. I didn't take care of much of anything. I couldn't pay my bills. And I was like, this is stupid. Why am I doing this? So I was like, I gotta stop.
Yeah,
So because and at that time I was drinking about a 12 pack a day. I was smoking about a pack of cigarettes a day, and I was taking medical cannabis at the time for chronic pain. So I decided to start with alcohol, and I Googled alternatives to 12 step,
yeah,
and I found Smart. And that was on a Wednesday. And so I attended my first meeting on a Wednesday afternoon, and I was hooked, and it was online. I joined the Smart Recovery online community. And they had a 24/7 chat room and this forum online. And I attended like every meeting on SRL that I could because I didn't work at the time. And I just soaked up everything. I soaked up the tools. I got the workbook and I just learned the tools. I ingrained them in myself and I practiced them every day.
nice.
And, and I could see, like, as I was going to meetings, I started to think about, well, maybe I would have approached that person this way. Like, thinking about what if I was leading the meeting? How would I handle that?
Yeah,
So it was kind of organic for me to move into facilitating because I felt that I knew the tools well enough that I could teach them to people.
yeah,
So I started taking the training in, I think it was July of that year, and I completed it in August. And
wow. So you went through it quite quickly.
I did, yeah.
Yeah. And did you just automatically do that yourself? Did you get any help from anybody to go in to do the training? Did you just decide that you were going to do it and just jump into it?
I just kind of jumped into it, and I
Nice.
showed up at a smart meeting management meeting, and they were kind of like, "What are you doing here?" And it was one of the ones with Dr. Joe Gerstein, and he's one of the
Okay.
founders of Smart.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I was like, "Well, I'm here to learn. I started training. I want to run a meeting." So, yeah. So, and I did, and I joined another online chat community, and so I did get encouragement from them.
Nice.
um, so yeah, and so I ran another meeting. One of the other founders of Smart, Mickler Bishop, he had two meetings at the time, and I was attending his meetings, and he turned one of his meetings over to me. So I had, at that time, I was co-facilitating a women's meeting on a Saturday. I had my local meeting on a Thursday, and I was running his Tuesday noon meeting. So
Right.
I had three meetings that I was volunteering in, and I was doing like all the SMMs. I was doing the motivational interviewing training, the role plays, like
Right.
that. They have all that available for volunteers. Um, and then kind of my life blew up. So, like, my dad went into a nursing home and I got divorced, like, kind of all at the same time. But using the tools that I had learned in SMART and going to therapy, taking my medication, doing the things I need to do to take care of myself, I'm still sober.
Yeah.
I have a new job. I have a place to live. I have all these friends,
Yeah.
and it's really amazing. And like, I'm just down to the one meeting now on Thursday evenings at 7 o'clock because of my job. I can't volunteer for so many meetings.
Yeah.
So I had to give some up, but I'm still doing the one, and I really enjoy it. I have some regulars that I look forward to hearing how their life is going this week,
Amazing.
and yeah, I really enjoy it, and like you said, I get so much out of it.
Yeah.
Like, if I can help somebody realize something in themselves that they had the answer all along, I just had to pull out of them. I get so much satisfaction from that.
That's amazing. Brilliant. Thanks, Jody. Appreciate that.
Thanks.
Yeah, and again, like I said to Erin, we're going to come back and go through, your own personal experience of facilitating the meetings and the different skills that you find most effective. But let's, if it's okay, let's hear from Amit. Just again, same thing for you, bud. Obviously, welcome into the conversation, and just if you can, just give us a little bit about your experience of how you came across Smart Recovery, what drew you into the community, at what point you decided that you wanted to be a facilitator, and what that was like for you. And yeah, just love to hear your point of view on what that was like.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for having me. So I remember the day I joined Smart. It was about a year ago today, and I've been in recovery for like say a decade, right? I don't know when, but I've always known that alcohol was an issue.
Mm.
Um, and then I had some health issues about a year or two ago, where basically if I didn't stop drinking, I wouldn't be around right now, right? Um, and I tried all these programs, and I would count days, and people would, and the programs I tried were amazing. The people were amazing. They're just like, you can do it. They were supportive. I'd go to them for help,
Yeah,
but every day felt like a struggle.
yeah,
um, and I remember this one particular day where I was walking to the liquor store. Alcohol was my issue. I was walking towards the liquor store, and I didn't want to go. It felt like I was on autopilot, and I remember I was walking there, tears coming down my face, like, why am I doing this? Why am I? But I couldn't stop myself.
yeah,
And so I had heard of Smart Recovery, and I hadn't tried it really before. And it was an online meeting, so I was able to open it from my phone. And while I'm walking to the liquor store, and because I was new, I happened to be called on to check in, right?
yeah, yeah,
Hey, and I remember that so well. They're like, "Hey, what's your name? What's your, drug of choice?" I said, my name's Amit, alcohol. What brings you here? Oh, I'm walking to the liquor store right now. I really don't want to drink. And it got real. And I just, I think the facilitator saw the tears down my face, and he just went, he went through the HOV, a couple tools, and something about that just hit me. And it was like the first time in my life where I realized that it was my choice whether or not I want to drink. The whole smart, the self-management thing, I never understood that. I never
yeah,
understood that I had a choice. I thought it was like this disease that I just had to put up with for the rest of my life.
yeah,
Um, and so I had a powerful meeting. I didn't go to the liquor store that day. Um, and I started attending meetings from there as much as I could. Um, and don't get me wrong, I've had many lapses, many failures or whatever, but slowly but surely I got better. And I think the most important thing was I ended up understanding that the real issue wasn't the substance. The
mm,
substance was a symptom of a lot of other shit inside, right? The
yeah,
way I
yeah,
think about the world, cognitive dissonance and stuff like that, where it wasn't until that I fixed those things about myself that the substance issue went away. And so I think Smart was amazing for that. And I've had so many bad things happen to me because of, drinking since my teens. And I just thought, man, I wish that I had smart when I was like, that age when I started. And so I've always had that feeling. And I just remember the way that this facilitator impacted me on that day. And I'll never forget it. And I thought like, I want to do that for someone else.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's why I did the facilitator training, and now I run a young adult smart meeting on Monday nights,
Amazing.
and I've been doing that for a few months. We have a few regulars. It's really good, and it's so honestly, it's probably more helpful for me than it is for them, right? The people that show up. Uh, and in addition to that, I help run like a small smart community for people outside of meetings. And in addition, I'm trying to spread the word of smart,
Yeah.
out in the world because it's so powerful, and I really wish more people knew about it. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of my whole journey and how I got into smart. So
So you doing the youth meeting? I know when I worked at Canadian Mental Health, we had a facilitator there that was specifically trained in it was a special training that she did for the youth program. Is that the same? Did you have to go through that, or is that was a while ago, so it might have changed now? Is it still the same kind of training for? It's the same training right across the board, or is there an additional thing that you do for the youth?
right, it's the same training right across the board. I just physically I'm a bit younger, even though I don't look like it. So I even still, like, I'm in my late 20s, and so like I'll get like 18 and 19-year-olds coming in. I'm like, I don't know how to talk to you, right? So yeah, no special training, but I do my best.
Yeah, I'm 52, so I'm screwed in that area. So
Yeah.
that's amazing, though. Good, honestly, man. Should be really proud of yourself for stepping up and starting all that stuff. It sounds like you're doing a really amazing job. And again, we'll come back to you and talk a little bit more about the specific skills that you find effective and useful for you, the way that you use the tool. So, just want to go to Pam though, and just welcome into the conversation, Pam, and just yeah, same for you. Just a little bit about what drew you into the smart recovery community, how you found it, at what point you decided to become a facilitator, and what that process was like for you as well.
Okay. I found Smart through a friend in another online community that I was a part of, and it was a mental health site, and they had a chat room, and someone said, "Hey, you could really benefit from this." So I joined Smart Recovery Online. They had a chat room and a forum and meetings, and I could be anonymous, which was really important to me at the time.
Yeah,
So I really responded well to Smart. The empowering aspect of it, especially. Um, was a really big game changer for me. I joined in November of 2022, and about 3 weeks later, I had completely quit.
wow.
Yeah.
It
Since
was
then,
that
I've,
it was that
yeah,
instantaneous for you, right? Wow,
yeah,
that's
it
amazing.
changed my life. It really
Yeah,
did.
yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think it was about it that helped you that way? Because it sounds like you were doing other things, like you were involved in other programs, and it wasn't having that same kind of impact. What do you think it was about coming into the smart recovery community that helped you to change so quickly?
Well, I mean, the practical tools that I could work on my own time by
Yeah,
myself were really important, but also the community, being
yeah.
around people who actually wanted to be better and were solution focused and wanted to change was really inspiring for me.
That's amazing. And then at
Yeah.
what point did you obviously you were in the community then you were using the tools and working on them in your own time, staying anonymous, keeping in the background. At what point did you feel like you were going to step to the forefront and take the facilitator training and start to put yourself out there?
I took the facilitator training in June of 2023, and I co-facilitated meetings shortly after that with a gentleman named Caleb. And then the timing wasn't working out for me. So eventually I started co-facilitating a meeting Monday nights instead with Sarah. It's a women's meeting. We still run it now.
Nice,
I also ran in-person intro to smart sessions at the local addiction center here in Oshawa, Ontario.
nice.
Um, and I guess I just wanted to give back to the community that gave me,
Yeah,
my life back. So
yeah. Do
I
you, do you find
decided to
there's a
bite the bullet and do it.
yeah. Do you find that there's a big difference between doing them online and in person? Because I know when I when I first started facilitating smart meetings many years ago now, they were in person, and we just had a small turnout, maybe like five people sometimes, 10 people sometimes. I think the most we ever had in in-person meetings when I was facilitating them was like 15 people, something like that. To then going into the online program, the difference I found then, because it's available to anybody, basically all around the world, you can have 50, 60, 70, more than that people in a meeting, right? So what was that like for you? What difference do you find between doing in-person and online meetings?
Well, in person was definitely more engaging for me to be a part of
Yeah,
because the people, like, I could see them, but it was
yeah,
also for people in detox at the
right,
time. It was the
right,
detox floor, so they weren't feeling great,
yeah,
but they wanted to know about smart, and a lot of them were really responsive, but there was maybe at most 15 people at a time. And then our online meeting, we get like 40 people on the regular, which is a big difference. But
Do you still
I
find
think
you're able to make a connection with people even though you're online though?
I do. I think I can actually make more of a connection in
Nice.
some ways, which is really interesting. Um, but the in-person sessions, like, it was different people each time as well. So I think that makes a big difference too when
Yeah,
it comes to building community.
yeah,
Whereas our online meeting, we have the same people a lot of the time,
yeah. And you
which makes a
find you
big
get a lot
difference.
out of the meetings though now, like you.
Oh my God. I sometimes if I don't feel like doing it, I'll go in there being like, okay, we'll just get through this. And then by the end of it, I'm like, this was amazing. I'm so glad I did this. Like, I think I get more out of it than they do.
Yeah, that seems to be a common theme.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing. All right, Pam, I mean, and obviously, we'll get you back into the conversation as we go through, like get your opinion on the different tools that you use, the ones that you find effective, and how you apply them in your meetings. But yeah, let's go to Thomas. Thomas, welcome to the conversation, and if you can just go through, what it was that drew you into the smart recovery community, and at what point you decided that you wanted to be a facilitator, and what that was like for you. Love to hear your experience of it.
Yeah, so for me, I was drinking and drugging for a long time. Started at single digit ages and just kept on going all the way up through my 20s. Um, Never really had any major issues until I had gotten a DUI. And my lawyer actually was the one that suggested SMART to me.
Hmm.
And I had been to some 12-step meetings. I had taken some friends to those meetings in the past, and I wasn't just wasn't my vibe. I didn't like it. So I said, okay, I'll try this smart recovery thing. And I logged into a meeting, and this was in 2020, and I never I never stopped attending that meeting every week. I know that when I first logged in, I thought it was I was uncomfortable. I wasn't too sure of it. I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. Um, but the more that I went, the more that I attended, the more that it started to speak to me, and the more I started to realize, hey, there's something to this. And I got to where I was knowing all the tools. I could rattle them all off. I knew all the terminology and all the tools and everything that was needed. Um, but I don't think I was really using them.
Yeah,
And about 4.5 years later, almost 4.5 years later, um, I had relapsed and I got myself in trouble again.
yeah,
And so I jumped back into meetings. And this next time around, I started utilizing the tools, started putting pen to paper, started actually putting in the effort.
yeah,
And wow, things have changed. Oh my God, things have changed. And there was a flash sale going on the website for the facilitator training. I felt that, if I already thought I knew the tools, if I learned how to teach the tools, then I'd really know them.
yeah,
So I took the facilitator training for no reason other than to just learn the tools a little more deeply.
yeah,
I wanted to have a better understanding of them, kind of get a better grasp on the program, and through that training, I ultimately made the choice to start facilitating. It was the training itself that motivated me to start doing my own meetings.
That's really
Um,
interesting. What was it about
yeah,
training that actually brought that motivation into you?
the training itself, there's parts of it that touch on making sure that us as facilitators take care of ourselves, don't do I forget the terminology exactly, but don't get burnt out on, how far we spread ourselves in volunteering and things like that. Um, and it was just, seeing that the community didn't just reach participants, that there was also, they took care of their own. And uh, the more I participated, the more meetings I went into, the more facilitators that I spoke with, um, the more rewarding it appeared. And I've only been facilitating a few months now, but I've loved every bit of it. I learned something from every meeting. The people that attend, they get, I'm hoping, the same thing out of it that I got when I was new and when I was looking for that support and that community. And much like one of you guys already said, it feels good to give back to the community that taught me as much as it has.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of what led me into it. And I mean, now that same lawyer actually calls me to give his clients information on Smart.
That's
I
amazing.
Yeah, so it's a wonderful thing.
That's amazing. Good stuff. All right, so everybody, welcome to the conversation. We're going to be basically shooting the breeze about this stuff now for a little bit. I want to start off basically just looking at the 4-point program. Okay, so Smart Recovery itself is built around this 4-point program that starts with building motivation, that then goes into coping with urges and then managing thoughts and feelings, and then ultimately trying to live this balanced life. And I think just to talk about the 4-point program itself before we get into any of the tools that go inside of each section. For me, when I first started looking at smart recovery, and when I look at any kind of model of behavior change, and they've got particular like modules that you go through, I think there's a like when you look at DBT, okay, there's 4 or 5 modules, whichever way you want to look at that. The self-analysis and the mindfulness, and then going into distress tolerance, then emotion regulation, and then interpersonal effectiveness. We learn them individually, and we try to get used to the tools or the skills as it is in DBT. And then the idea is then that you integrate them into a lifestyle where you're constantly drawing from each one. But in the beginning, we're kind of learning them as a lineal process. I found the same with smart recovery when I started to look at it. Yes, you've got, we're going to start with building motivation. We're going to look at what we do to cope with urges. We're going to try to establish what it is to manage those thoughts and feelings and behaviors to ultimately live this balanced life. But I don't see it as a lineal process. I don't see it as we just go through these skills and then woohoo, life is awesome. It's, we're constantly going back and forth as a fluid process throughout the skills. So I just want to get your take on the 4-point program. Jody, if we can, what's your take on the 4-point program itself? Like, how do you see it playing out?
Well, I mean, I could speak for myself playing out in my own life. Like you were saying, the tools, um, they're fluid,
Yeah,
like if you, okay, you can't say, okay, I did the HOV, the hierarchy values. I did it already, so I'm done.
yeah,
No, like my values have changed over these past almost 2 years.
yeah,
Like my life situations have changed the things on my HOV. I've done several cost benefit analyses. I've done I don't know how many ABCs. Like like you said, it's not lineal. It's like you use the tool that fits the situation that you're in and the outcome that you want to get out of it.
yeah,
Like say if I'm anxious about something, like I know I need to do an ABC because
yeah,
that will help me feel better about what is going on,
yeah,
and if I'm worried about being my motivation, maybe I'll go back to my cost benefit analysis or my HOV, and I try to revisit my lifestyle balance pie once a month to see where my satisfaction is in my areas of life,
Yeah,
you
amazing.
know.
Yeah, so
So
actually like building the skills into your lifestyle as well, not just reading the book and popping it back on the shelf, as I like to say, right?
right, right. And I've gone through the book, so it's like I know what's in there, but so it's not like I'm in it all the time,
Yeah,
but I've integrated the tools into my life to a point where I just know what I need to do. I
yeah,
know what tool I need to do for this situation,
yeah,
you
absolutely.
know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, how do you find it with the 4 point program? You're working with the youth. Do you find that people try to look at it as a linear process, or are they approaching it with a much more fluid mindset? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
I think when people are younger, they naturally have ideals about the world, motivation, this, that. It's when we get older and like smacked in the face by life that we start losing So I don't look at it as a linear process. I think of the 4 point process as more of like, have you ever seen like a food pyramid
Yeah,
where like you have the most important foods at the bottom and then you have
yeah,
like the sweets and stuff up top?
yeah,
And
yeah,
so like for me, like building and maintaining motivation, that's like key. And then once
yeah,
you have that, then you worry about coping with urges and then managing thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. And then once you have all that, then at the tippity top you have the sweets, which is like living a balanced life,
yeah. That's
right? But you
brilliant,
can't
man.
have the top without the bottom, right?
Yeah,
And so I always keep that in mind. And to speak to what Jody said about going through the book, and it's not like something that you start, finish, and then put on the shelf. Like I still have my book with me at all times. Like if I'm at my desk, I have the book, right? So yeah, it's not about just learning the tools and whatever. It's about integrating them into your life. And what I love about Smart is that there is no like one version of Smart Recovery.
yeah,
We're on like the third edition of the book right now.
yep,
We're going to be on the fourth edition by the end of this year. And every single time we add new tools as we see evidence, as science improves, psychology improves. We're always changing, and so that's what I love about Smart is that we use what works. We don't have any dogmas. We don't have
yep,
any it needs to be this way, and so it's very fluid in that manner. And so you think about it whatever is most helpful to you. So
yeah.
those are my thoughts on it.
That's brilliant. And Aaron, you run a Saturday night meeting, right? So, that's got to be, I always think about when I hear that you're doing that Saturday night meeting, I always think that's got to be a challenging time because you're going to get people coming in there at a variety of different stages of recovery. You've probably got people that are showing up regularly, and then you've got those one-timers that are coming in because they're just in a bad mindset. And how do you approach the 4 point program in those kind of circumstances? Are you able to get it across as a linear process, or do you kind of start at a specific point? Like how does that show up for you?
It's interesting. No, I don't think I have a linear process. I have the saying, we have tools, not rules here in Smart. And what I like to say to people is it's kind of like a sandbox. There's no particular order you need to go in. Just go ahead and play. The hierarchy of values is an exercise, like we've said, that Smart views it a different way than you've taught it to me,
Yeah,
Stephen, when it
yeah,
comes to we look at values. And I put that out to the group. I say, listen, guys, I'm going to do something with the tools that is a little bit different than what's taught in the Smart Recovery program. And rather than looking at what we find valuable or our goals in life, let's look at our own personal values. And I find doing that, and also because we are on Saturday night and there's an array of personalities, like you say, I put a poll up to the audience, like, what would you guys like to do today? Would you like to do a reading? Would you
yeah,
like to do a video? Would you like to do a specific tool oriented exercise? And based on whatever the group votes, that's what we'll do. And there, I wouldn't say that, I start with we're going to be focused around building and maintaining motivation in today's discussion. It's kind of up to the group on where it goes. And I like to think that people walk away having learned at least a tool or learned a perspective on one of our 4 pillars. Building and maintaining motivation, I like what Ahmed said, is like, how can we get anywhere else without it? And for me, the hierarchy of values tool was such a great and still is guide to who am I? Like when that term that you use about living the life I want to live, how do I know the answer to that if I don't know my own personal values?
yeah,
So when I was first asked that type of thing, and then the rigidity, it's like, okay, I value honesty. Does that mean I'm always honest? And then no, of course not. Does that mean I'm always going to feel guilty when I am dishonest? No, not necessarily, because I value harmony. I value my safety. If I feel as though saying the truth right now will compromise those things, then I will tell a lie and I won't feel guilty. And I was like, wow, this is mathematically working on a psychological level for me. And
Yeah.
I love that type of, I know rigidity isn't always good, but when it came to this type of an equation, I was like, it's a pretty simple one. If I do things that I value, I feel okay. When I do things that are against my values, I feel guilty. And then there's the shame, and that's its own thing. But it was a simple equation for me to understand how to mitigate some of the pain that I was bringing into my own life.
Yeah.
Why do I feel like crap every time I do this, or every time I say this, or well, it's me. And learning that about myself has been very self-rewarding and fulfilling.
Yeah.
It's something I'm still an exploration I'm on every day.
Yeah, I don't think we ever stop with that exploration, but I mean, for me, values is something that I check in with every single week, like just making sure, from a DVT perspective, I know we focus specifically on living a values-based life, and that's why I found Smart Recovery such a fantastic program to get involved with because it lines up beautifully with what we do in DVT, talking about that balanced lifestyle and the values and everything. So yeah, it's definitely something that I think it's the guiding light, right? Living by those values. It's the thing that we keep coming back to where we go, okay, is this the person that I want to be? Does this line up with my values and beliefs? Does this help me to live the life I want to live all the time? It's brilliant.
Well, and Stephen, sir, can I just say one other thing too?
Yeah,
Because
go
I
for it,
didn't.
man.
The cost benefit analysis is a tool that I had been exposed to in other ways from different programs. The one thing that Smart brought to it that was unique was the long term. So, just to give a background on what we're talking about with cost benefit, is basically a pros cons
Yep,
4 quadrant, kind of looking at something of the good reasons to stop doing it, the bad reasons to stop doing it, the good reasons to not stop doing it, and the bad reasons to not stop doing it. I had seen that type of decisional diagram in the past from work and from other exercises, but Smart brought the long-term, short-term aspect of things, which I had never looked at before.
yeah,
Like, well, let's analyze this even deeper in saying, like, yeah, there are pros and cons, but are we sacrificing short-term gain for long-term pain? Right. And that,
absolutely.
yeah, so that was also a motivator for me in what we say, play that tape forward. But
Yep,
there's no denying that there's reasons I did the thing that I don't want to do anymore. So to just say that it's a bad part of my personality that wants me to do bad things, no, like the language, wow, there's a part of me that really wants to have a drink. What is it trying to escape from?
yeah,
Let's get curious. Let's be compassionate. This part of me is trying to help me.
yeah,
Right. So that self love, once again, that ability to self accept has put me in a place where there's less polarization and inner turmoil going on in my head.
yeah, totally get
And
it.
yeah, and that's, once again, it helps me maintain my motivation.
Awesome. Good stuff. Thomas, how do you find the 4 point program? Do you in your meetings you say you're quite new to the smart recovery facilitation? So do you when you're using it, do you teach it in any kind of linear way? Do you look at it as a fluid process? Like how does that show up for you in your meetings?
It's still a very fluid process for me as well. Generally, what I do is I like to just you know, have everybody kind of introduce themselves, tell us where they're at that week, any challenges or successes that they've had. Some weeks, you'll kind of hear um, you'll hear a theme going on where there's multiple people that are kind of having
Yeah,
the same similar issues, and that usually allows me to kind of choose a tool or a trick to focus on a little bit. Other weeks, what I do is I like to find an article or a video, something that is based in either REBT, CBT, or SMART specifically. And, we'll read that article or watch that video and then have our conversation based somewhat around that.
amazing.
Um, for me, the reason it's so fluid is because I I don't use one tool at a time.
Yeah,
There's not a lot of them where I'm just using one.
yeah,
When I'm doing my HOVs, I can sit there and use them, but then I'm also kind of doing a CBA on like, okay, well, is this really what I value? What does it mean to focus on this and not that? And then, your lifestyle balance is using those values. And when I'm running an ABC, I'm also looking at divs, and the things that I value are what help me to form my beliefs. And They all kind of start to fall in
Yeah.
on each other and tie together. And I think that's what I like so much about it, is that once I started actually putting pen to paper and really diving into it, and learning more and more about myself through the tools, uh, the more that I was able to see, like, okay, this four pillar thing is holding up one big piece that is recovery.
Yeah.
And that's really what I've always enjoyed out of it, and what I find to be so useful with the program.
Amazing. That's awesome. Yeah, I think the fluidity of it, like joining everything together, knowing that you're trying to build them into the way that you're living your life, rather than just kind of randomly thinking, okay, which tool am I doing today? But just like so that it becomes so fluid, it becomes just actions that you're taking is where we're trying to get to. But in the beginning, much like when we start doing with DBT and coming in through the Smart Recovery program and then learning all the tools that go in there. I love how I just want to say to people that might be brand new to talking about Smart Recovery, hearing all these short forms like flying around in the conversation. Don't worry, we're going to get to what each of them mean. We're going to talk about the tools in other conversations. So keep your eyes and ears open for the other conversations as they drop on the channel. But yeah, so just like learning that these skills can be quite clunky in the beginning when we're first learning them, but putting pen to paper is absolutely key. That's the thing that starts to make them become a lot more fluid. So I love the fact that you're looking at it from that perspective. What about you, Pam? How do you find the 4-point program? Do you bring it? Do you talk about it from individual perspectives? As it seems like most people just seem to treat it as a fluid thing.
It's very fluid because we have people from all different stages of recovery in our
Yeah,
group, right? So depending on the check-ins and the crosstalk and everything,
yeah.
it depends on what we really go over. Sometimes we'll do like a CBA, but like sometimes that's not warranted, so we'll do something else, and um, it's very fluid as well.
I want to talk a little bit about something that shows up in the first part of the handbook in Smart Recovery. One of the things that really kind of struck me in the face and made me go, "Wow, I absolutely love the way they're looking at this." And this is something that I talk about a lot in the meetings that I facilitate, whether they were when I was doing the Smart meetings or in the new ones that I do with the Liberation Place. This is a problem with instant gratification. This is, one of the first things that comes up when you go through the handbook, when they start talking about what's led you to the place you are. I think this is such a really important concept for people to get their head around. So I just want to, if we can, just spend a little bit of time talking about what the problem with instant gratification is in this conversation, and then we'll see where we're going to go after that. I think this will be a great way for us to kind of round this conversation up, just exploring what the problem with instant gratification is, aka the pig. Aaron, what's your perspective on the pig? When when you first heard that term, the problem with instant gratification, how did that sit with you? What did it mean to you? How did you kind of process it?
Well, I'm Jewish, so I was like, well, that's not kosher. So, there was a part of me that liked to bring humor to the equation. And yeah, I had never heard it put that way. And yet I knew it on the surface. What I didn't know is how profound it became when it was you, Stephen, that brought it to my attention in a scenario where I was saying something I had done. And you said, yeah, but there's a part of your personality that feels as though it needs to do that, right? And I'm like, what, mitigate pain? And you're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, yeah. And you're like, yeah. Not well, yeah. And it's like, oh, hold on a second. So problem with instant gratification isn't just the need to pleasure myself. It's also the part of me that wants to always make me feel good. Discomfort happens, and there's a part of me immediately that goes, let's get rid of that. Or planning a situation, how can it be the most comfortable way it could be? And I was like, oh, wow, this is coming out in all parts of my personality. This isn't just substance. This is behavioral. This is avoidance. This is, and when I thought of how problem with instant gratification pours into parts of my life where it was like, I avoid certain places, people, and things because it's easier to than to face it. Problem with instant gratification. I don't go into work when I don't want to because I had a bad fight with somebody the day before. What's the instant gratification? Stay home and lie in bed.
Yeah.
Right? That's the pig in me. And I was like, but up until I really started to understand what we call the pig, I always thought instant gratification was the part of me that likes to eat candy or the
Yeah.
part of me that likes to drink alcohol.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like I didn't see it in other parts of my personality. And once I understood, I was like, wow, do I have a pig in me?
Yeah.
Right. Like, and it's still, it roars its head at times where it's like things just need to be better now.
Yeah.
I don't want to feel pain. I don't want to feel discomfort. I need to feel good. I need to feel interested. I need to be stimulated. And it's like that problem with, and I honestly, Stephen, as simple as changing the channel,
Yeah.
if watching a show and the commercial comes on, bam. Why? PIG, man, right there.
Yeah.
And it's like, why not just sit and be bored? And
Yeah.
so I'm training myself, honestly, in life to be okay, not being okay. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. Totally get that. Thomas, how does it show up for you when you first heard that term, the pig, the problem with instant gratification? What were your thoughts about it?
Um, well, I think I'm kind of going to be echoing Aaron a little bit here.
Yeah.
It's something that I definitely knew that I knew about. I had just never seen it actually, no example had ever actually been given to me. But the more I kind of focused in on it, because part of it is that oh, I want a candy bar now, or oh, I want a drink right
Yeah.
now. But equally, it is also that, like the word that sometimes goes into my head with it is like entitlement,
Yeah.
where I kind of think like I deserve to have this, right? So I should just have this now.
Yeah.
And because I don't have it right now, I'm going to feel impatient, I'm going to get upset, and I'm going to get irritated, and then I'm going to lash out.
Yeah.
Um, and I've learned through this stuff that there's a lot of power in finding comfort within the discomfort
Yeah.
and being able to kind of sit and face those moments and recognize it first and foremost, allows you to kind of fight that pig back a little bit and kind of stick him back in his pen. Um, it's definitely something that I think a lot of people are aware of, but I do wonder how many of them were just like me. And yeah, I was aware of it, but I didn't realize just how much of a role it plays.
Yeah.
You know,
It's like it's for me when I first started learning about pig was obviously before I was introduced to it in smart recovery, but then as it was such a big piece of the smart recovery program in the beginning, talking about the problem with instant gratification, I started to look at it from lots of different perspectives, and I think just recognizing that, much like what you and Aaron were saying, that yes, it is involved in, I always say, yeah, I ate candy alcoholically when I was a kid. Like seriously, like that was a problem with instant gratification right away. But then obviously that went into my alcohol use, my drug use, my pornography use, the problems I had with disordered eating. Like it was all revolving around the problem with instant gratification. But when I removed those things, then there was, like you say, this sense of entitlement in me. Well, I deserve something, so where am I going to get this instant gratification from now? How is this gonna show up for me? Because the last thing I want to do is sit with my feelings and my thoughts and this uncomfortableness that's in my system. Jody, how do you find that it shows up for you when you're working through the understanding of the pig?
I'm going to be honest because as a woman of a certain size, I kind of took offense to saying that there was a pig in me,
Yeah, I get
so
that. I can understand that. Yeah.
but as I read it and I understood, what it was, it made sense because like Aaron said, it's not only like give me what I want right now. It's not just that. It's like how do I avoid pain? How
Yeah.
do I avoid anxiety? How do I like I drank to avoid panic attacks
Yeah. Yeah.
because I got panic attacks all the time.
Yeah.
And the more I drank, it seemed the more I would get panic attacks and I didn't put it together. So like I figured I better keep drinking so to stave off these panic attacks even though I got them anyway.
Yeah.
And then I took the medical cannabis to try to avoid pain, but I still had pain. So, and then I through my journey I've learned how to tolerate it and accept it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like and I see it like you said, in my disordered eating, in my TV watching, in my, phone scrolling. It's like, instead of taking things in, how do I sit with the discomfort in a way to say that I'm safe,
Yeah.
I'm okay
Yeah.
right where I am? Even though I feel like shit emotionally, I'm still okay. I'm
Yeah.
safe. I'm in my home. Nothing, a tiger is not going to eat me, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
you know.
Absolutely.
So, like, sitting with the discomfort and making it normal, not to say that I feel shitty all the time, because I don't,
Yeah.
but integrating the discomfort into my life, because no one guarantees that we're going to be happy all the time.
Exactly.
Life is just not like that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, shit happens,
Yeah.
and it's okay to feel like shit sometimes.
Yeah, I think in the philosophy of like living the life I want to live and being the person I want to be, it's important to get across, and I think that's exactly the same as what you're talking about there when we're looking at the problem with instant gratification. Living the life I want to live doesn't always mean doing the thing that's pleasurable.
Right.
Sometimes it means doing the thing that's really difficult to do. Sometimes it means sitting with the uncomfortableness, sitting with the discomfort, delaying the gratification. Sometimes it means, dealing with that one thing that you really don't want to do, but actually stepping into the fear that's there, because that's what it means for you to be the person you want to be. That's what
Right.
lines up with your values and beliefs. And, I think for me, the problem with instant gratification often took me away from those values and beliefs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
All right, guys. So here's what we're going to do. We've kind of covered what each of you and myself, what our experience is with smart recovery, how we got introduced to it, and how we became facilitators. And for you guys, continue to be facilitators. We've touched on the 4-point program and a little bit about what I think is one of the most important concepts to understand when we're doing any work around this type of behavior change, which is the problem with instant gratification. For anybody that's looking for more information, in the description of this in the description of this video, I'm going to put links to a page on my website that'll allow you to drop into any of these guys' meetings. We'll put that on the website, so you can get access to the meetings whenever you want. Put a whole bunch of links in the description as well for all the smart recovery resources that are out there, because as I said at the beginning, this is not an official smart recovery presentation in any way, shape, or form. So, want to link you to all the information that goes with those. I want to continue this conversation, so hopefully these guys can join me again, and we'll start going over some of the more intricacies of the program, getting into specific tools. We'll go over some of those the tools that we've talked about today: hierarchy of values, CBA, all those other things. But for now, we'll wrap it up. We'll call that it for today. Hope to see you again soon. Take care, be safe, and be well.